Greetings, superior beings, greetings, supreme being. Welcome on Try Something.Vegetarian. We are all the human race, our common enemy is death. So, promote universal peace for a better future. I'm 𝙲𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚁𝚾, this is the broadcast. Heatwave Netherlands geoengineered and Rothschild financial advisor of Boris Johnson. Today is the 26th of July 2019, and what do I have planned for you all today? Well, it's good to start with my new Twitter, Never Again World War. So it's Never Again WWar, twitter.com/neveragainwwar. And this also has some information. I will start with the intro, and then I will go into online stuff. So what does the internet tell us about Boris Johnson's connection to Rothschild, for example? Who is the real Boris Johnson? So even when I search on Boris Johnson, he's a self-proclaimed Zionist. I guess people in Britain already know more things about Boris Johnson than people in the EU or in the US. The new Prime Minister of Great Britain, Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson on his opposition at a London Jewish Forum breakfast event. But I will go into that later. First, I'm going to cover the heat wave in the Netherlands. So perhaps it's best if I just begin with the intro. It's really hot in the Netherlands. Last year they also made a heat wave, so I'm not surprised if they do it again this year. And of course we've seen the floods in Iran, not Iraq, but in Iran recently. I've covered that in my broadcast as well. So geoengineering, the cloud seeding patterns, chemtrails, it all fits in with the global warming hoax run by the NASA Masons and others. And there's a good broadcast about it. Perhaps I should watch that instead. Global warming is a hoax, Lord Christopher Monckton. Alright, but let's just that may contain more important information. And then I'll get to Boris Johnson, prevent, stall, contain and end World War III. That's the idea. Shaking hands with Mr. Rothschild, Lord Rothschild, in front of Madison Manor or something. Let's see. I have to make this picture bigger to see. 𝙲𝙾𝙲𝚃 Manor. 𝙲𝙾𝙲, not okay. There was an interpretation that I had thought of. When it's read out by the speech engine, perhaps I will recall it. So let's begin with the text intro for now. So yeah, they're modifying the jet stream, manipulating the weather to give the illusion that global warming is real. I said it a week or 2 weeks ago already with the cold period in the Netherlands, that I think that they are creating a heat wave. So it was like 2.6 degrees colder than normal temperature for the year, basically, for a couple of days, 5 days or so. And that was reason enough for me to think, oh yeah, then they're making another heat wave like they did last year. So basically nature's reaction to making it colder will be making it hotter. So if you want to make a heat wave, then you first have to make it colder. So that's one way to determine what weather they're creating. Alright, let's read the intro.
Boris Johnson was born to British parents on June 19, 1964 in Manhattan's Upper East Side in New York City. His birth was registered with both the U.S. authorities and the city's British consulate, thereby granting him both American and British citizenship. Johnson's mother was Charlotte Fawcett, the granddaughter of Elias Avery Lowe, a paleographer, who was a Russian Jewish immigrant to the U.S., and Helen Tracy Lowe Porter, a translator of Thomas Mann. Helen Tracy Porter was the daughter of Clara, née Holcomb, and Henry Clinton Porter. "I am a passionate Zionist," declares Boris Johnson, Jewish News JewishNews.timesofisrael.com. Farage was born in Farnborough, Kent, England, the son of Barbara, née Stevens, and Guy Justice Oscar Farage. Problem.Vegetarian Zionism equals Zionist nationalism, walking with the Jews who created Christianity.
So that's problem.Vegetarian of dig.com, etc. You dig, putting the F back in the funk, or whatever.
Jewish Journal JewishJournal.com. The USA will never be the Holy Land to them. It is possible that the centipedes in my and my father's body are genetically modified to be easier to control with synthetic telepathy, but they are not HEMs, hybrid insects, of DARPA. Whatever it is, it can be part of advanced programming that meant tell new tales. The USA will never be the Holy Land to the Muslim and the Jew.
It's in a Bootsy Collins video, it's really cool. Dig. Don't be so horny, Hans.
Question mark. Nonsense call. Iran vs USA update. New false flag? The Bubba News 904 views streamed 3 days ago. Dick Cheney's false flag attack idea to start a war with Iran. Kenneth Chandler 39 views 3 days ago. UE tanker disappears in latest Iranian false flag. The political vigilante Graham Elwood 4.7k views 5 days ago. Another Iran false flag, and Epstein claims his global agreement makes him impossible to prosecute. The last American vagabond 16k views 1 week.
Okay. Yeah, 1 week viewer, that's me. And my tip for you all is basically, because it's heat wave, the plant sprayer from Action. This is very cheap. Don't know what I paid for it, but it's incredibly cheap. And then you can just go spray, spray. Cool. You can put ice cubes in it, you know, because it's really hot in my room. It's really a good idea. And I also use these cool bracelets, but they become pretty warm pretty fast, so then it's time to put them in the freezer again.
America is resorting to false flags to start Iran war. Abby Martin Jr. eclipsed 797k views 3 weeks ago. Iran vs USA update. New false flag? The Bubba News 904 views streamed 3 days ago. It's all part of their endgame. The US may have shot down their own drone and blamed it on IRGC, which Trump designated as a terrorist organization. I have not checked where the drone came down exactly. Iran claims it was violating Iranian airspace. There is material, videos, of the drone wreckage available. CIA, Criminals in America or Chemtrails in America. CIA, Debunking Shills, the Pill Shill. Zionism, Jewish nationalist movement that has had as its goal the creation and support of a Jewish national state in Palestine, the ancient homeland of the Jews. Hebrew, Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Shouldn't that be the ancient homeland of the Palestinians?
So yeah, the idea is the pill shills, if they talk about the red pill, blue pill, green pill, etc. Don't take any pills, chemical, that's cancer causing, prescription drugs, increase your cancer risk. And as a matter of fact, they're in the top 10 of main causes of death, prescription drugs, like hospital visits, because misdiagnosis is also in the top 10 of main causes of death. And there's also a list of pandemics caused by vaccinations, so check it out via universalpeace.jimdo.com. Donations are accepted for universal peace. Okay.
And Israel wiped Palestine of the map, so Zionism is a nationalist movement. NSDAP was a nationalist movement as well. The National Socialist German Workers' Party. The party grew out of smaller political groups with a nationalist orientation that formed in the last years of World War I. Wiki/Nazi_party and Zionists are nationalists. Debunking the myth that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitic, TheGuardian.com. I'm for giving that land to the Israelis to prevent World War III, a one-state solution, equal rights and a passport for all people living in Israel in return for the Temple Mount, but they have planned a world war so they will not consider it, so you could call me a Zionist, in theory. The World Zionist Organization Knesset.gov.il, are all Jesuits Zionists? Are all Masons Zionists? One Twitter user alleged that the actor's shirt was emblazoned with a white supremacist dog whistle, and declared that Pratt was unequivocally the worst. Yahoo Movies UK reported, the dog whistle is on the left side of, be wiser than serpent's heel. Dogma, a principle or set of principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertibly true. The simple geometry letter value of both the nuclear deal and Donald Trump is 138. Other words with a simple geometry letter value, A equals 1 Z equals 26, of 138, triple helix, pulsar wave, Lockheed Martin, forestalling, Felix Kjellberg, 911 call, I'll kill you, the internet, hypocrisy, I am Indian American, young thug, Pamela Anderson, 0. Gematria is real, the savior, Hadron Collider, George H.W. Bush, Mashiach, Master Mason, Apostle Paul, Ku Klux Klan, Necronomicon, Donald.
So I skipped the previous thing because it's not important, and it was also covered by others on YouTube. So it's probably not a dog whistle, and you can see other versions of the shirt that don't have it, I think. But yeah, that's a simple gematria letter value, so that's 138. That is if you give the letter A the value 1 and the letter Z the letter value 26. 26 letters of the alphabet. So that's how they got that number. And these are other words with the same letter value, 138.
J. Trump, Baron Trump, keep America great, Christchurch, Astral Plains, period. If I'd rewrite 138, 138, it's ACH, cha. US may have downed more than one Iranian drone, CENTCOM Commander Gen. Kenneth McKenzie says CBS News. It's like, yeah.
Could it stand for Chaim, L'chaim, perhaps? But that's very far-fetched. Probably nonsense. Whoa. Okay.
We don't know exactly how many drones we shot down. It could be 1, it could have been 2. We now think there are too many drones. We are so advanced it's hard, even for us, to know exactly how many drones we shot down, but this is our best estimate. Of course we cannot say this, but it's what we think. 1 drone, 2 drones, that seems about right to us. Unmanned drones anyway, so we're not keeping score. It's not that important, nobody is gonna miss these drones, you know. Down drones tell no tales. I forgot if it was one of ours überhaupt, could Kushner be Kissinger, theoretically, and the man that plays Kissinger would have to be stand-in. Could Boris create World War III, and what is his connection with Rothschild? Boris Johnson hires Sky's Andrew Griffith as business advisor. The former Rothschild investor banker joined Sky in 1999. Source: 𝚃𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚾. How a U.S. nuclear strike actually works. 1,728,509 views. 19K854C. Mutually assured destruction works in their minds. Takeover is so takeover. The core global.
So that part about the drones, of course, was fabricated by me. But it is weird, you could argue. US may have downed more than one Iranian drone, CENTCOM commander Kenneth McKenzie says. They may have, but they're not sure. That's kind of weird with the through-the-wall radar and everything. Even the ability to remotely torture us and send illegal voice-to-skull messages and program people with hypnosis overnight, which they wouldn't remember if it was done successfully. It is very weird, and perhaps it's impossible that they really don't know if there were one or two drones shot down. But they may have downed more than one. So how does this work? Well, perhaps it's a cover-up for people that claim it was a false flag attack, and they're probably gonna do another one to create a world war. So be prepared, and have your radiological water filter and storable food ready, helmets, iron, pills, gas masks, stuff like that, to survive this long-planned world war. Hopefully there will never be a World War III. World War III should never be, that's true. And now Iranian leaders have made clear, Zarif and others, that they allow full inspections in all of their facilities. So you could argue there is no good reason anymore for the US to sanction Iran. And Putin, who is always left out by these people talking about it, the ally of Iran, disagreed with sanctions, and I've done broadcasts about it as well. The nuclear torpedoes and preventing mutually assured destruction. And it's possible none without a Tesla plasma shield would survive World War III. So perhaps I can turn that picture on again. Oh, this is of this shows basically how much damage the nuclear torpedoes of Putin would do. New torpedoes that make 90-meter high tidal waves. So dikes and airports are targets. Nuclear target maps for your country are also online. So I would suggest everybody to go to a safe country when you think it goes down, or that it could go down, that World War III could start. To go before that happens, to take a holiday, and then if it doesn't happen, you can travel back. And if it does happen, then you've survived and other people have died. So survival is all, and there is no good reason not to prepare, you could argue, in civilized advanced countries like the Netherlands and the US. So Israel may be a reasonably safe country unless they're also going to kill all non-Jews. It's based on Talmud. 𝚃𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚃, also covered by viciousbabushka.com and Talmud Faith Web. I covered it in my previous broadcast. So that's only applicable during wartime, is what they claim. Like jihad is only when there is a jihad. And I've checked global jihad, and usually practically all the pages, I haven't found a page that was not American or Israeli mainstream media. So I haven't really found any pages of Muslim people advocating a global jihad or talking about it on their website. It's usually done by others, I think. That may also be because they speak Arabic, of course, so the pages that are or would be about it may be in Arabic, so then you'd have to use Google Translate. So I haven't really searched for any Arabic or Muslim sources talking about a global jihad. That was what I was trying to find. Preventing beats curing, I always say. I just have to calm down and then I'll get some better ideas, hopefully. And for now, continue the reading. And people know I'm anti-religion, not anti-religious people. I'm pro-de-religionization. And Geert Wilders is pro-de-Islamization, which is part of de-religionization. So I am for closing borders of countries with no-go zones until the no-go zones are settled and people are integrated, not assimilated, so that the country doesn't fall into a crisis, and so that everybody can get good health care. Though you could argue health care is paying for your own extermination with chemical, cancer-causing prescription drugs, which is one of their population reduction tools in my top 10 of population reduction methods and countermeasures. So I don't just tell you what's wrong, also give you the solution, how to survive, and what countermeasures there are. And that may be on one of my other channels, so people have to search a bit. So I did a video about 50 population reduction quotes. And via universalpeace.gym.com you can find my older blogs. My newer one is Never Again World War on Twitter. And I advise everybody to read the latest information, follow what's going on via my channel Something.Vegetarian, because that has the latest info. And the more recent, the more truthful and accurate, because I'm a truth teller, conspiracy factist, not theorist. And I also expose Control the Position, Alex Jones and others. That's one way you can know that I'm real resistance to the people that want to reduce the global population and impose their satanic Luciferian totalitarian global government that have remote torture weapons, synthetic telepathy technology, hypno-slaves and other slaves, and some of them are Luciferians, some Christians, some Orthodox Jews and Muslims. Can be Luciferians, in reality Freemasons. Of course that may also be infiltrated, perhaps it's the only reason we're all still alive. So that's a secret society, and all intelligence agencies are Freemasonic, according to Citizens Action Network, and controlled by the Jesuits. And if that's true, then they have tortured my mother to death and my teeth out of my mouth, and their inquisition may still be ongoing. Speech errors are also made with this synthetic telepathy technology, and it may also be because of the heat at this time. I really have to use that plant sprayer, otherwise I pass out. And it's like 34.7 degrees Celsius now. I'm in a room on the second floor with a black rooftop. So perhaps painting it white would help. But we can use the plant sprayer and ice cubes and stuff. But it was like, here you see an ice cube. No, I said, now you have an ice cube, and now you don't. You see, ice cube into ice cube, that's the thing. And it's systematic, and I'm not in on it, I'm not working for them. That's the illusion they will try to generate. So yeah, calling people sheeple, like Alex Jones did, that's part of the 10 phases of genocide. It's called dehumanization. More about this later. The 10 phases of genocide are covered in my broadcast, and it's a top 10 of a couple of words, so it's really quite easy to memorize it also, so perhaps I should.
Total of Jews jumps above 15 million if the highest American estimates are assumed. Wiki/Jewish_population_by_country, prevent, stall, obstruct, sabotage, contain and end World War III. Iran offers to return to nuclear deal even if US doesn't. The Jerusalem Post 4 hours ago, July 25, 2019. Iran says it will commit to nuclear inspections if US lifts sanctions. Washington Post ART, Review HD streamed, July 19, 2019 at 8:08 a.m. Iran makes substantial nuclear offer in return for US lifting sanctions. We murdered World War III, HD streamed, July 18, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. US sanctions on Iran are deliberately targeting innocent civilians and amount to economic terrorism. HD streamed, July 18, 2019 at 6:31 a.m. Make plans to secure the future of humanity, prevent, stall, obstruct, sabotage, contain and end World War III.
Plans. So it's good to make a plan. If we don't have a plan and they do, then they've already won, you could argue. Though that's not always true, because we have the numbers. We're 7.5 billion people strong. They want to annihilate 93% of us, so you bet there are others that are exposing them and that are fighting for their lives as we speak. So that's a German font, because World War II. So I'm against imperialism and totalitarianism, against invading other countries. These illegal wars in the Middle East are illegal wars without the consent of Congress. Wartime Powers Act, etc. make clear that invading sovereign nations, and Iran is not just a sovereign nation, also a UN country, NPT signatory country, is not allowed without the consent of Congress. So they have to have that consent of Congress, and they try to circumvent it with the idea that the official Iranian army are a bunch of terrorists. And so the US army is also designated as such by the Iranian leaders, I think. I think that it's also in the mainstream media. It may be covered in my previous broadcast, but you can Google it. So, but most people don't know that. They keep it out of the mainstream media, so they want to scapegoat Iran, which is part of these 10 phases of genocide, is dehumanization. So that's one to watch out for if we're trying to do the right thing, not choosing sides, and to create universal peace instead of what they have in mind, create a perfect society and control all these factors that control aging in time, which is possible because everything is possible because everything is energy. We are molecules, we are energy. Time itself is energy as well, according to former Lieutenant Colonel Tom Bearden and others. Scalar technology is real recent. Declassified CIA documents are also about the scalar technology, all covered by me in my broadcast about the scalar patterns on this channel. Try Something.Vegetarian. Animal protein, especially animal fat, increases your cancer risk, so it's healthiest to be vegan, to go vegan, as long as you take enough vitamin B12. And food sources for B12 are online. You can also use methylcobalamin spray, vitamin B12 spray, and then it's healthier, and many top athletes are vegan as well.
Ten phases or 10 stages of genocide. 1. Classification. 2. Symbolization. 3. Discrimination. 4. Dehumanization. 5. Organization. 6. Polarization. 7. Preparation. 8. Persecution. 9. Extermination. 10. Denial. Why are they not using the FEMA camps? Perhaps Walmarts converted into cages are closer to the child sexual abusers than FEMA camps. 𝙵𝙰𝙲𝚃𝚃. Should we boycott automation? Nobody has real privacy. Synthetic telepathy reality. It's the 𝚲𝙰𝙲𝚃. The Goy knows. They build their Merkel. Will Boris Johnson free Tommy Robinson? Above image viewers left wearing a black suit is Boris Johnson with Lord Rothschild, who is one of Mr. Johnson's financial advisors. Immigration and Customs Enforcement space vehicle versus the unmanned space vehicles. It sure is hot today. 34.4 degrees Celsius on the clock in my room. Will Boris Johnson free Tommy Robinson?
Okay, so we can watch part of the speech. Of Lord Christopher Monckton. Uploaded by ADST September 3rd, 2015 already, so there are lots of people. I'd have to check how many views it has, but many people know that it's a hoax and that they've also falsified the number statistics to push their eco-tax money scam. And I've covered that these Freemasons are found all around the world. They've infiltrated global societies, global governments of the world, and they're found in these lodges. Masonic lodges are found in Russia, in India, China, and in Australia as well. So they're not just in the US and Italy. Trying to think of other countries where there are lots of Freemasons. But it's a secret society, and of course Kennedy spoke out about secret societies. And in the US, the government has to let the people know what it's doing, basically. But these people have taken an oath to defend the group and do crimes for the group, annihilate 7 billion people for the group, etc., to impose their satanic Luciferian totalitarian global government. And the Jesuits also created Islam, according to Alberto Rivera, a murdered priest or whatever. And they may control the position to themselves, so there's someone to deny and ridicule the truth. For every person there is on YouTube telling the truth, they have 3 or 4 people denying and ridiculing the truth, basically. So it may be hard to find the truth, but after 10 years of study you should have a reasonable idea of who controls everything.
And there, an officer of the through struggle and sacrifice, under the green fig leaf of pietistic change ambassador, testifying before my horror throughout that abnormally long and savage winter, she death rose by 7,000 to 31,000.
It takes a while for Virtual DJ to catch up with the video. Perhaps I should play it with another player.
Mirror of climate mitigation.
So I'll just work on playing the video because I want to see these statistics also, and I can't find them if I cannot see the video, if that's blocked somehow.
As the flimsy cover store.
So then I can find the video with Virtual DJ, like this, right mouse click, and then File Operations, Open in Explorer. Can I also choose Play without Virtual DJ? File Operations. No, but I can simply go to the folder that's now opened. But then it will take a while because there are many videos in that tree. I hadn't really planned this, so it will take a while for the video to open. I found it, it is starting it up. I thought I had closed, I didn't close Virtual DJ yet. I'll do that to have some more CPU available. So let's fast forward. There I see a picture that's interesting. Part of the video. I do a blackout for CPU to stop a CPU overload. I don't know if my audio was working. Audio of the video is not working yet. So sometimes it switches to another in or output or something. Let's see if I restart this. Sorry about that, but they may be sabotaging it every step of the way, and I'm not gonna edit and waste too much time on this stuff. And I really hate to prepare, and I don't want to worry anybody unnecessarily, but it is better to be prepared. And why am I not hearing this video? Go to sound settings. The volume control icon is also missing. Perhaps it was replaced by this volume mixer then. It also looks pretty weird. Retry it with Virtual DJ then. I'll just have to fast forward slower. Let's take it from here for a while. But people can watch the whole video on YouTube. I think that would be a good idea.
I accuse the Prince of Wales.
So I don't know if the audio was working for you all, but for me it wasn't working. In the beginning with the video, the audio was working and the video wasn't playing. So it may just be a CPU problem. I'd have to check the video, then you can see here this indicates the CPU usage. If that would be the case, or if there's something else going on, let me know in the comments or Skype Prologic999.
Ban Ki-moon, Barack Hussein Obama, Al Gore and Rajendra Pachauri of preaching self-denial while flagrantly flaunting their failure to practice personally the restraint they so readily and so profitably enjoin upon others. I accuse the European Union, the United Nations, and such-like self-serving entities of profitably exploiting the plight of the poor while shamefully ignoring it. I accuse Al Gore, the United Nations Framework Convention, and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, of overstating the likely future warming of the Earth, the costs and consequences of such warming, and the imagined and imaginary benefits of abating it, while understating the costs of abatement. I accuse the IPCC of having falsely claimed in its 1990 first assessment report that it had substantial confidence in its then prediction of near-term global warming, which has proven since then to be double the observed warming rate. I accuse the IPCC of having allowed a single scientist in 1995 to replace 5 correct statements in its second assessment report to the effect that no human influence on global temperature could yet be detected, with a single false statement saying the direct opposite. The climate consensus, then, is a consensus of just one man. I accuse the IPCC of having falsely attempted to abolish or minimize the medieval warm period, seen clearly here in an earlier record by it and also in a sea level record, in its 2001 assessment report, in defiance of overwhelming evidence in the learned journals that that period was real, was near global, and was almost everywhere warmer than the present. I accuse the IPCC of having, without scientific justification, permitted the inclusion in its 2007 fourth assessment report of a statement that all Himalayan glaciers would vanish by 2035, and I accuse Dr. Pachauri, its climate science chairman, of having for many months dismissed as anti-scientific all attempts to correct this error. I accuse Dr. Pachauri and the IPCC of refusing to correct on request an influential error in the fourth assessment report by which they falsely stated that the rate of global warming was itself accelerating and that we were to blame. I accuse the IPCC of having falsely claimed with 95% confidence in its 2013 fifth assessment report that recent global warming was mostly man-made, and I accuse the universities of Queensland and of Reading of falsely claiming that research by their personnel had found 97.1% of 11,944 scientific papers explicitly stating that recent warming was mostly man-made, when the researchers themselves, in their own data file, had marked only 64 papers, or 0.5% of the entire sample, as endorsing the supposed consensus thus described. I accuse Britain's oldest taxpayer-funded lobby group, the Royal Society, emulated by its profiteering clones worldwide, of abandoning the scientific objectivity enjoined upon it at the time of its foundation, of suppressing scientific evidence and opinion unhelpful to its bottom line, of claiming as certain the inherently uncertain in the climate, and of bullying without mercy any scientist who dares to disagree with it. I accuse the editors of Science, Nature, and such-like once learned journals of having suppressed scientific papers with which they disagreed, and I accuse the president of the American Physical Society of willful prejudice in having dismissed the 2 blameless editors of Physics and Society for having dared to publish a paper by me questioning correctly, as events have shown, the rate at which the world was predicted to warm. I accuse the vast majority of the global academic and scientific elite of sheep-like silence in the face of the bastardization of science and the repudiation of reason and the scientific method for profit by a greedy but powerful few. I accuse Greenpeace and such-like lobby groups of exploiting the environment as a mere cover for their totalitarian political ambitions and of relentlessly brainwashing their hapless and untutored supporters with scientific misrepresentations. I accuse the world's news media of failing to report almost any scientific evidence or fact, however relevant, casting doubt upon the party line on climate. In particular, that the satellites show no global warming at all for 17 years, 9 months. There is the actual record from the scientists. There is the trend line calculated on it. It is horizontal. No warming has happened for 17 years, 9 months. I bet you haven't been told that before. That sea level may not be rising at all. Green on this graph is the actual measured sea level. Red is what was published. Do you notice the difference between the two?
Okay, so these two are interesting. So this is at 17 minutes 33 seconds. So you can check it out in the video. Global warming is a hoax. Lord Christopher Monckton, uploaded by 𝙲𝙾𝙃 on September 3rd, 2015. If it's still online, otherwise Skype me if you'd like to have this video. Alright, then we can jump to the next subject, which was, oh yeah, Boris Johnson. Especially his connection to Lord Rothschild. And there's an interesting Facebook page about it. So this is Never Again World War on Twitter. And it also gives reasons to prevent World War III. None without a Tesla plasma shield would survive. A 7-year nuclear winter, mutually assured destruction. It would cut us off from controlling all factors that control aging in time. And even if they already have control of all factors that control aging, it would be too uncontrollable if there are 15 scalar weapon countries. And they're also listed in that article. And it's clear that according to this graphic of cpri.org, it's clear that Russia has more nukes than the US. And they also have the Poseidon intercontinental nuclear-powered, nuclear-armed autonomous torpedo, which creates 90-meter high tsunami waves. So that would wipe California off the map, literally, basically. So I advised them to have an agreement with Putin about whatever it is they have planned to do, if anything. Perhaps it's best to do nothing. Iran already proposed to allow full inspections and to stay in the JCPOA nuclear agreement, even if the US doesn't, etc. Covered in my previous broadcast, but this was about Boris Johnson and the Rothschilds. So there's, I may not have read this completely, it's really quite a lot of information. And this is on Welcome to the Thought Revolution, at Imagine a World with No Corruption, on Twitter, on Facebook.com.
Welcome to the Thought Revolution is with 𝙲𝙾𝙽𝚃 and 𝙲𝙾𝙽𝚃. June 7, 2015. Middle. Found this floating around, a long read, but if the world is going to change it should at least be informed. Rothschilds, We were behind the rise of Hitler, funding communism, socialism, also Zionist, and we funded both sides in almost all modern wars since the Napoleonic Wars, all world major assassination, world economic collapses, 9/11 and result wars, sink of Titanic. Just want to let know you don't own yourself. Our Federal Reserve does. Our empire. 3 cities states rule the world: inner London, Washington D.C. and the Vatican. It's not part of any country and it has its own rules. Complete history of the House of Rothschild. Rothschild cartel behind the rise of Hitler, also funding communism, socialism and World War. Rothschild cartel behind the rise of Hitler, also funding communism, socialism and World War. In 2000, the 70-year-old Sir Evelinda Rothschild married affluent businesswoman Lynn Forrester. They spent their wedding night at the White House in Washington, D.C., with Bill Clinton scuttling around serving them drinks and hors d'oeuvres. A year later, on September 11, 2001, the couple hired out the entire top 2 floors of a 5-star hotel in Manhattan. The hotel had a majestic view of New York. At 9 a.m. precisely on that fateful morning, September 11, 2001, the lucky couple stepped out onto their balcony where breakfast was served. They had ringside seats of the World Trade Center. They could see the Twin Towers glittering in the distance. They could see the first plane approaching through an azure blue sky. And then the fireworks. The explosions. The billowing smoke. And then the second plane approaching. They could see men and women leaping from the towers, spiraling downward to their deaths on the concrete below, as they sipped their coffees on the sunny balcony, musing on life and death and sex and shopping. They had the best seats in the house. http://www.darkmoon.me/2014/9/11 Shocking truth laid bare / Israel belongs to the Rothschilds. Israel belongs to the Rothschilds. Rothschild dollar exposed. $500 trillion worth includes Bank of England, Reuters News, Associated Press, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNBC, CNN, Royal Dutch Shell, Israel, Federal Reserve, US/UK governments, CIA, NATO, half of world Israel. http://ministerpresident.wordpress.com/./Rothschildc. Since 1871 they've had the plan WW1, WW2, and yes, upcoming WW3 our screenplay. Since 1871 they've had the plan WW1, WW2, and yes, upcoming WW3 our screenplay. Who owns the Federal Reserve? Who owns the Federal Reserve? The Rothschilds and the Vatican. The Rothschilds and the Vatican. Hidden books in the Vatican. http://worldtruth.tv/hidden books in the Vatican. 2/911 was an Israeli Zionist false flag attack, Can O'Keefe. 9/11 was an Israeli Zionist false flag attack, Can O'Keefe. You don't own yourself. Rothschild's Federal Reserve does. http://www.viewzone.com/collateralx.html. Titanic, the ship sank. It was not, in fact, the Titanic but the sister. The Titanic sinking, Rothschild and Rockefeller conspiracy. The Titanic sinking, Rothschild and Rockefeller conspiracy. Titanic, the ship that never sank, conspiracy documentary. In 1912 the unthinkable happened. The supposedly unsinkable Titanic sank after hitting an iceberg, or so it was thought. In the best-selling book The Riddle of the Titanic, Robin Gardner and his co-author Dan van der Vat shocked the world with their claims that it was not, in fact, the Titanic but the sister ship, the Olympic, which finished its days amidst the icy waters of the North Atlantic on that fateful night. Now in his controversial follow-up, Titanic, the ship that never sank, Robin Gardner goes further into the scandal of the sinking, not only with more evidence on the alleged scam perpetrated by the While Star Line but also with further evidence showing the possible collusion of the British government in the cover-up. Robin Gardner's remarkable new account of what really happened on that terrible night reveals fresh evidence which sheds new light on the circumstances. The Titanic sinking, Rothschild and Rockefeller conspiracy. In 1912 the unthinkable happened. The supposedly unsinkable Titanic sank after hitting an iceberg, or so it was thought. In the best-selling book The Riddle of the Titanic, Robin Gardner and his co-author Dan van der Vat shocked the world with their claims that it was not, in fact, the Titanic, but the sister ship, the Olympic, which finished its days amidst the icy waters of the North Atlantic on that fateful night. Now in his controversial follow-up, Titanic, the ship that never sank, Robin Gardner goes further into the scandal of the sinking, not only with more evidence on the alleged scam perpetrated by the While Star Line but also with further evidence showing the possible collusion of the British government in the cover-up. Robin Gardner's remarkable new account of what really happened on that terrible night reveals fresh evidence which sheds new light on the circumstances. Empire of the City. The 3 city-states who rule the world today. 3 cities rule the world. 3 city-states rule the world. The Empire of the Cities, Inner London, Washington, D.C. and the Vatican. 3 city-states rule the world. City of London, finance, receives taxes from their subjects, slaves, in Canada and the United States. They design and control our financial and banking systems. Vatican City, religion. The Pope wants to merge all the religions into one, which is absolute nonsense. The Pope broke off from the truth, confusingly referred to as the Eastern Church or Eastern Orthodox Church or Orthodox Church or Orthodox, about 1,000 years ago. Washington, D.C., military. Death camps and stacks of black plastic coffins that can hold 6 to 10 bodies each, are piled high in a long train-like fashion, as far as the eye can see, in the United States. Today, these 3 are sovereign, corporate entities that are not part of the countries they are located in. They have their own laws, and identities, as indicated by their respective flags. Below, the 3 stars represent these 3 city-states, and the number of the beast, 666, 3 city-states that rule the world. These 3 also have obelisks in common, which also shows that they are all connected by Freemasonry, which prays directly to the devil himself, who they call Lucifer, the god of good and light. They call Christ the bad guy. These deluded Satanists are running things, which explains a lot of the negativity in the world today. The obelisk is phallic in its appearance and represents the male penis. It is symbolic of the Egyptian sun god, Ra, and is an ancient symbol of male energy and generation. In Freemasonry, see the obelisks below. London Obelisk, aka Cleopatra's Needle, located on the banks of the River Thames. This obelisk was transported to London and erected in 1878 under the reign of Queen Victoria. The obelisk originally stood in the Egyptian city of On, or Heliopolis, the city of the sun. The Knights Templars' land extended to this area of the Thames, where the Templars had their own docks. Either side of the obelisk is surrounded by a sphinx, more symbolism dating back to the ancient world. Vatican Obelisk, located in St. Peter's Square, was moved from Egypt to its current location, in 1586. The circle on the ground represents the female vagina, while the obelisk itself is the penis. This is commonly known as occult symbolism. Washington Obelisk, aka Washington Monument, standing at 555 feet. The Washington Monument is the tallest obelisk in the world and also the tallest standing structure in Washington, D.C. The monument's cornerstone, a 12-ton slab of marble, was donated by the Grand Lodge of Freemasons. Like the Vatican Obelisk, the Washington Monument too is surrounded by a circle denoting the female. The reflecting pool in front of the monument signifies the ancient Masonic, Kabbalistic dictum, as above, so below. The Crown Temple. The Knights Templar were a pseudo-Christian group of crusaders, who took up residence in Solomon's Temple and spent years digging a tunnel to try and find the Ark of the Covenant, because it was believed that whoever held this ancient treasure, would have the power to rule the whole world. The red cross and sword on the flag of the City of London, is actually the Knights Templars' flag. The Knights Templar were first called the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon. This is a blatantly misleading title, considering the immense wealth and power of the Templars, who operated 9,000 manors across Europe and owned all the mills and markets. It was the Templars that issued the first paper money for public use in Europe, establishing the fiat banking system we know today. In England, the Templars established their headquarters at a London temple, which still exists today and is called Temple Bar, Crown Temple. This is located in the City of London, between Fleet Street and Victoria Embankment. The aforementioned Crown, to be exact, is the Knights Templar Church, also known as the Crown Temple. It is the Crown Temple that controls the legal, court system of the US, Canada, and many other countries.
So people can imagine a world with no corruption on Facebook.com for themselves. And I don't know if the information provided here is correct, but it could be, so it's interesting.
All bar associations are directly linked to the International Bar Association and the Inns of Court at Crown Temple in the City of London. Anytime you hear somebody refer to the Bar Association, they are talking about a British, Masonic system that has nothing to do with the country's sovereignty or the constitutional rights of its people. This is why, when you go to court in the US, you see the US flag with a gold fringe, denoting international rule. The governments of the United States, Canada and Britain are all subsidiaries of the Crown, as is the Federal Reserve in the US and Canada, aka the 13th Federal Reserve. The ruling monarch in England is also subordinate to the Crown. The global financial and legal system is controlled from the City of London by the Crown. City of London. The City of London is the square mile that makes up the centre of Greater London, and is the global seat of power, at the visible level. Temple Bar, Crown Temple, Knights Temple Church. The Temple Bar consists of what are called Inns of Court. There are 4 Inns of Court as follows: Inner Temple, Middle Temple, Lincoln's Inn and Gray's Inn. It is believed that the Inner Temple controls the legal system of Canada and Britain, while the Middle Temple controls the legal system of the United States, though all inns are themselves controlled by the same few at the top. Declaration of Independence and U.S. Constitution. People believe that the U.S. has declared independence from Britain, thanks to our education system and the media. Of course, this is not true at all. Just look at the U.S. currency to see all the Masonic symbolism. Of the signatories to the Declaration of Independence, at least 5 of them were Temple Bar attorneys, all of whom had sworn allegiance to the Crown. Alexander Hamilton was one of the Middle Crown agents during the formation of the U.S., and was assigned to set up the American banking system, on orders from the Crown, to control the United States. In fact, the state is a legal entity of the Crown. State in this case, is short for estate. The E was dropped, in favor of secrecy. This is why we also have the State of Israel. Furthermore, 7 members of the Constitution Convention that signed the United States, actually estates, as in British property, Constitution, were Middle and Templars who had also pledged allegiance to the Crown. And today, copies of both the Declaration of Independence and U.S. Constitution still hang on the wall, in the library of the Middle Temple, in London. Thus, any American, or Canadian, that thinks they live in a free country, is sleeping with their shoes on, like a passed-out drunk. If you look at the wall behind the podium, in the House of Representatives, you will notice that, on either side of the U.S. flag, is the depiction of bundles of sticks tied together and an axe. See red arrow. These are called fasci, as in fascism. This was the symbol of fascism in the Roman Empire, and the Nazis, and still is today. Washington, D.C. operates under a system of Roman law and outside of the limitations established by the U.S. Constitution. Therefore, it should not be a surprise that the name Capitol Hill derives from Capitoline Hill, which.
So we find that fascist flag in Congress, US Congress, and basically I downloaded a video uploaded by Politico, the title of which is Boris Johnson is a Nazi. Politico on YouTube. And he had some interesting things to say about Tommy Robinson also. Interesting speaker with a legal background, lots of likes and lots of viewers. So I already showed the channel, I think, so people can check that out for themselves. And I've covered that Putin and Trump may be crypto Jews. And Boris Johnson is a self-proclaimed Zionist, and his mother's name was Holcomb, with an E, Holcombi. So, I don't know, he might also be Jewish. also these videos that I showed in the beginning with that, the background made me think, oh wow. And also Boris Johnson wearing the kippah. So I'm not even gonna search for the video. But if he is Jewish or crypto Jew, like Theresa May, there are people on YouTube that claim that she's a crypto Jew as well. It's determined by the mother, according to halakha. The mother determines whether a person is Jewish or not. The mother has to be Jewish. And whether the father is Jewish or Goy, non-Jewish, doesn't matter. You could also talk about whether the term Goyim is also an ethnic slur, a la the K word, basically. But that's another subject for another video, you could argue. And how many crypto Goyim could there be? Could Ivanka be a crypto Goy, or she converted to Judaism, so it's, what makes a person Jewish other than their lineage, basically? If the Church of Satan, the Jesuits and the Freemasons were all founded by Jewish people, Loyola, Weishaupt and LaVey. And I found also an article about Jewish people creating Christianity. I'd have to search in my writings what the source of that was. Walking with the Jews Who Created Christianity, jewishjournal.com. I haven't read that, so I don't know how it meant, etc. But that's another interesting study, perhaps, to find out who created the religions, Christianity, Islam. And according to sources online, Alberto Rivera, the Jesuits created Islam. And I'm for giving Muslims a new identity, Muslims who want to convert to another religion or to become atheists, unbelievers like myself that know that religion is an abomination and religion is an illusion, to quote Freud. They should be given the chance to do that, because apostates are killed in Islam. Islam is a violent, totalitarian ideology, according to Geert Wilders and many millions of people who know the facts. So can anybody disprove this to me, my claim? I'm open to debate on ProLogic 999 on Skype. What was I saying? It's so hot in my room, incredible. So yeah, I guess I already said it. Also in previous videos, which are worth checking out. I'd love to know what I was just saying. I'm not going to check it online. But I was reading. Oh yeah, we were reading about Rothschilds. I, for one, am for freeing Tommy Robinson, whether he's Mossad financed or not, and it's clear it is an illegal sentence, and Politico may also have some more interesting videos from a legal point of view in relation to Tommy Robinson. Donald Trump is racist, 6.6k views 1 week ago. Well, what we can do is just search on, oh here, the latest video 3 days ago, Tommy Robinson case, summing up and nailing down the key flaws. So that's worth checking out as well, otherwise I wouldn't have mentioned it.
It was the seat of government for the Roman Empire. The United States, United British Estates, was established as a corporation under the rule of Washington, D.C., which is itself subservient to the City of London. With the passage of the Act of 1871, corporations are run by presidents, hence, we have the President of the United States. And the fact remains, that the U.S. President is nothing more than a figurehead for the central bankers and the transnational corporations, both of which are controlled by high ecclesiastic Freemasonry, that really controls America, including Canada and many other countries. Again, the United States Corporation is controlled from the City of London, by the Temple Crown, aka the Crown, which is not the British monarchy, but a private corporation that is the inner city of London itself, also commonly known as the City or the Square Mile. This square mile that makes up the centre of Greater London has its own mayor, laws, courts, flag, police force and newspaper, characteristic of all three independent city-states, kind of like being their own country. Thus, the City of London is at the heart of the global financial system today. In conclusion, the Crown controls the global financial system and runs the governments of all Commonwealth countries, and many non-Commonwealth Western nations as well. Like Greece, the Crown traces back to the Vatican, which is headed by the Pope, who owns American Express.
So I notice Messiah sounds like Messiah.
Who is the figurehead for the real powers that be?
So according to the prophecy, the coming of the Messiah will be superseded by the Armageddon, end of days, that type of thing. And now that Red Heifer is born in Israel, many people are convinced it's going to happen. But the other story is Armageddon already took place, Armageddon, with the horses, etc. And they have EMP resistant technology as well. And they have guns, so I doubt if they would use horses and become horsemen. Perhaps Netanyahu with the helmet on, one of these long pointy things. Perhaps against Putin or Rouhani, perhaps.
Who are quite unknown to the world at large. Rockefeller reveals 9/11 fraud and New World Order. 9/11 was an Israeli Zionist false flag attack. Ken O'Keefe, Bush family Nazi connections, and the Black Pope. http://bushnazi-connections.blogspot.ca/ Vladimir Putin speech. 85% of the 1917 Soviet government was made up by Rothschild Jews, Jew being a misnomer, Zionist Khazars being more accurate. http://politicalvacraft.org/Vladimir Putin speech 85 of / We are approaching the final part of the New World Order's planned World War III. The plan has existed for around 100 years and is a combined Zionist Rothschilds International Masons Illuminati product. The final step after destabilizing as many countries as possible, will be to launch an attack on Iran, or for a false flag attack to be made, with Iran being blamed and attacked in revenge. There is also a plan to reduce the world population by up to 80%. It seems the Ebola plague is being used for this purpose. Did you really think that it was a coincidence that Ebola was starting to spread at the same time as ISIS was let loose? Interestingly, the Zionist flag of Israel consists of the symbols of both the Illuminati and the Masons, 2 triangles, Star of David or Star of Moloch and Lucifer, Acts 7:42-43. King James Version, KJV. 42 Then the Most High turned, and gave them up to worship the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets, O ye house of Israel, have ye offered to me slain beasts and sacrifices by the space of 40 years in the wilderness? 43 Yea, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. Amos 5:26-27, King James Version, KJV. 26 But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch and Cheon your images, the star of your god, which ye made to yourselves. 27 Therefore will I cause you to go into captivity beyond Damascus, saith the Most High, whose name is the Most High of Hosts. Moloch, Cheon and Remphan are all names for the star god, Saturn, whose symbol is a six-pointed star formed by two triangles. Saturn was the supreme god of the Chaldeans. The hexagram was brought to the Jewish people by Solomon when he turned to witchcraft and idolatry after his marriage to Pharaoh's daughter in 922 BC. It became known as the Seal of Solomon in Egyptian magic and witchcraft. David had absolutely nothing to do with the hexagram, and that star most certainly did not, in any way, represent Most High's people. Solomon gave himself up to satanic worship and built altars to Ashtoreth and Moloch, Saturn. 1 Kings 11-7, King James Version, KJV. 7 Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the abomination of the children of Ammon. The hexagram faded from Jewish usage for 2,600 years, then in the 1800s, in Germany, it was adopted by Meyer Rothschild to mark his house. The six-pointed star was used as the Rothschild coat of arms. It is difficult to pin down the date at which the six-pointed hexagram star became known as the so-called Star of David. In fact, the earliest Jewish application of the symbol outside the Rothschild banking and financial empire is 1873. That was the year that the Magen David was adopted as a Jewish device by the American Jewish Publication Society. It is not even mentioned in the rabbinic literature searches. Other than that fact, no one seems to know when or how the occult or satanic star became the Star of David. What should a so-called Christian or follower of
this image is in there because it's so wrong to use angry birds to promote your purpose. It's wrong.
The Messiah have to do with this symbol? Nothing, absolutely nothing. Keep the symbol out of your house. The evidence is overwhelming that it is a curse symbol which may give demonic ground or license. Hex, cast a spell on, bewitch, a magic spell or a curse. The hexagram has remained in use within the occult and is prominent in the rituals and worship of Druids, Freemasons, astrology, New Age, and Wicca, witches often have this hexagram symbol, of the so-called Star of David, tattooed on the abdomens or palms of witchcraft initiates. The so-called Star of David is essentially a hexagram, nothing more, nothing less. There is no biblical or Jewish evidence that traces this ancient occult symbol with King David of Israel. However, there is evidence that it was used by King Solomon, after he turned to pagan gods and the occult, late in his life. It is a very sobering thought and strong case against us that Solomon's soul would end up in hell. Here is a man to whom the Most High appeared twice, whose father was King David, who was used by the Most High to write so much scripture, Proverbs, Song of Solomon, and Ecclesiastes. 1 Kings 11-4-9, King James Version, KJV.
So basically, if you have a points-based immigration system that Boris Johnson also talked about, their non-citizens' eligibility to immigrate is partly or wholly determined by whether the non-citizen is able to score above a threshold number of points in a scoring system that might include such factors as education level, wealth, connection, etc. So wealth can be part of that. But with this point system, it depends on how many points they need to have, how you create it, whether that means open borders practically, or that means only a couple of immigrants would be allowed into Great Britain, though you could argue the borders must be closed until the no-go zones are settled and integrated.
For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Most High his power, as was the heart of David his father. 5 For Solomon went after Ashtoreth the goddess of the Zidonians.
So, for example, in a points-based immigration system, you could decide to only allow people that have a certain income, that are wealthy, and you could make it as high as you like, basically. For example, only allow millionaires into Great Britain, and then that would severely reduce the immigration numbers significantly.
And after Milcom the abomination of the Ammonites. 6 And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Most High, as did David his father. 7 Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the abomination of the children of Ammon. 8 And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burned incense and sacrificed unto their gods. 9 And the Most High was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from the Most High power of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice. The great goal of Freemasonry is to rebuild Solomon's temple, the occult one and not the holy one. A Masonic book called The Second Mile, an Eastern Star book, reveals that the six-pointed star is a very ancient symbol, and one of the most.
So we can't believe anything we read online, but here we see the article Boris Johnson hires Sky's Andrew Griffith as business advisor. The former Rothschild investor banker joined Sky in 1999 and became finance chief for the group in 2008. He has a reputation for asking sharp, commercially minded questions among staff at Sky's headquarters in Austerley, West London, and had been tipped as a potential successor to 𝙲𝙾𝙽𝚃 as chief executive. FT.com, people want to read the whole article. And basically this image is also found on the 𝙲𝙾𝙃 social forum, and the place where I found it was on this blog. I'm looking for that now. social.𝙲𝙾𝙃.com. There you see same picture on the picture that I have. It kind of looks like they're edited in, but here it looks more natural, the sunlight, etc. Oh yeah, that's this one on STEVEBATKIN.weebly.com. Above image, viewers left wearing a black suit is Boris. I mean, we read it, let's turn on. Oh, the picture show is on. Oh, it was showing stuff, I thought, but let's see. Go back to this. So I was doing the points-based immigration system mentioned by Boris in his first speech as Prime Minister, and that image, yeah, this image looks, this is on 𝙲𝙾𝙃's social forum. Okay. Another one shaking Lord Rothschild's hand, and this is the one I was talking about, STEVEBATKIN.weebly.com, where it seems like they are sort of CGI'd in front of the building. So that's weird. Powerful Friends in the background, 2016, 24th of June, I think. Above image viewers, left wearing black suit. Is Boris Johnson with Lord Rothschild, who is one of Mr. Johnson's financial advisors, they write. So I don't know if he's personally a financial advisor. At that time he wasn't Prime Minister, and I just covered that article. Sky's Andrew Griffith as business advisor. So perhaps that's what they mean. Mr. Johnson is being mooted by the corrupt British media as the next possible British Prime Minister sometime around October 2016. The Johnson family basically consists of global bankers, journalists and members of parliament, the typical mix of British establishment politicians. Sweat drips into my eye. Well, that's what they write. So let's continue reading the thought revolution. Imagine a world with no corruption article.
Powerful. The hexagram is used in magic, witchcraft, sorcery and occultism and the casting of zodiacal horoscopes by astrologers. It was considered to possess mysterious powers. The six-pointed star is used by magicians and alchemists. The sorcerers believed it represented the footprints of a special kind of demon called a 𝙬𝙗 and used it in ceremonies both to call up demons and to keep them away. O.J. Graham, The Six-Pointed Star, New Puritan Library, 1988, p. 35. 𝙲𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚁𝚃, a former Satanist, says, to the sorcerer, the hexagram is a powerful tool to invoke Satan. In fact, the word hex, as to put a hex or curse on people, comes from this word. If you examine the so-called Star of David, or hexagram, closely, you will discover something astonishing. It has 6 points, forms 6 equilateral triangles, and in its interior forms a 6-sided hexagon. Thus it reveals the number of Satan and Christ beast, 6 points, 6 triangles, and the 6 sides of the hexagram, 666. This ancient occultic figure is also a pagan symbol of sexual union and reproduction. The triangle pointing downward represents the female sexual organ, and the upward pointing triangle represents the male phallus. Joined together in the hexagram, they represent sexual union. To paganism and the occult, the union of the active and passive forces in nature. Thus the hexagram was a part of Satan's original sex worship rites and symbols of the sexually oriented rites and ceremonies of Baalism, Nimrod.
So if you know of any magic that works, please contact me, Prologic999, on Skype. And I think there is no working magic, that there is no magic that can help people become invisible and teleport things and make things disappear and reappear. They are all illusions made by illusionists, magicians. You could argue do not exist. Though as a child I also wanted to be a magician. I had a black hat and I was making things appear. I also know some magic tricks myself. Houdini, and nowadays you have David Copperfield and others. movie. Perhaps there are two movies about that. But one is, of course, the movie with David Bowie, also about the Tesla technology. Trying to think of the title. If you know the title, Sky Prologic 999, or write it in the chat. Anything you write in the chat is shown on screen. So there were two good movies. The Chronicle, that's one movie, and usually I used to think of the other title of that film about Tesla first. And it's really quite interesting. The Prestige, of course, yes. Palming and all these techniques magicians use, very interesting. Bait and switch, and the honeypot, or whatever.
And Semiramis, Easter, Astarte, and Baal, Venus, Aphrodite, and Bacchus. David J. Meyer, a former witch and occult practitioner, now.
So I'm against doing nefarious things, especially the government should not be engaged in anything nefarious, not involved in deceiving its people. They are supposed to protect and serve the taxpayers that have paid tax money for this, and otherwise they will rebel against their tyrannical governments.
Editor of the Last Trumpet newsletter and a Christian, declares, when the male triangle penetrates the female triangle, it produces the six-pointed crest of Solomon or hexagram, the most wicked symbol in witchcraft. The hexagram was used in ancient pagan Egypt as a tool to communicate with the dead. Of course we know they were actually demons, conjured up, posing as the dead. The dead are not able to communicate with the living. Some of the verses of Ecclesiastes are strong on this point, such as 3:19-20 and 9:10. How did this ancient symbol of the occult, and Lucifer, Satan, the devil, find its way to be a symbol of the Jewish people, and become the major symbol today of the so-called Jewish people, even being on the Israeli flag? The first martyr of the Christian Church, Stephen, in his defense before the Sanhedrin, warned the Jewish nation, as he reviewed the history of Israel. Acts 7:42-43, the Most High's word warns us, in the prophecy of Amos, Amos 5:26, this star was undoubtedly the six-pointed star, the star associated with sexual depravity, and whoring after false gods. It is the hexagram from occult, magic, and necromancy of Egypt. But, how did this figure become popular in Israel? In one word, the answer is Solomon. Solomon, after he became king of Israel, violated all the specific commands of the Most High to kings, on an unprecedented scale. Those special commandments of the Most High to the kings, which Solomon violated like no other, are found in Dut 17:15-19. There is no wonder that the goal of Freemasonry is to rebuild Solomon's temple. 1 Key 3:1. And Solomon made affinity with Pharaoh king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter, and brought her into the city of David, until he had made an end of building his own house, and the house of the Most High, and the wall of Jerusalem round about. The influence of the daughter of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, was no doubt considerable, as she was preeminent and most exalted among all his wives. Solomon, who loved the Most High in the beginning of his reign, turned away from the true path of worship as he grew older. 1 Key 11:1-2. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Most High said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. 1 Kings 11-9. And the Most High was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from the Most High power of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice. Solomon worshipped, among other gods, Ashtoreth, Easthart, Isis, Venus, Aphrodite, Milcom or Moloch, and Chemosh. These satanic rituals included human sacrifice, witchcraft, and sexual orgies. Solomon built high places, temples, and altars, for these pagan abominations, for all his foreign wives, and joined them to burn incense and do sacrifice to their gods. It was, without any doubt, Solomon, and not David, who adopted the hexagram, which became known as Solomon's seal, or Solomon's shield. He became a wizard, or consulter of demons, and the walked in forbidden occult powers of darkness, of Lucifer, Satan, the devil. Thus the hexagram became a prominent symbol in ancient Israel, which can be traced no farther back than Solomon. He adopted it from the pagan nations around him. There is no evidence to connect the hexagram with David, his father. There is no reason to believe that David, a man after the Most High's own heart, would ever adopt a satanic, occult, or pagan symbol for his shield. But Satan the devil, the chief of liars and deceivers, would certainly love to have you think so. Reverend. 12-9, John 8:44. Why and how did the six-pointed star, the pagan occult symbol, become connected with the modern state of Israel? It was adopted as the family crest or shield by the Rothschild family during the 19th century. The Rothschilds bought a great deal of property in Israel, from the Turks and Arabs, and were largest financial supporters of the Zionist movement in the early decades. The influence of the Rothschilds and their heavy financial support of Israel, led the so-called Jewish nation to adopt the so-called Star of David as their own symbol as a nation. As the Most High's people, we should have no part in the use of these perverted, corrupt, occult, Luciferian symbols, and everything they represent. They are an abomination in the eyes of our holy, almighty Most High. This popular so-called Jewish symbol, is not as Jewish as people are led to believe. It is very popular. It appears on many synagogues and as well as on the national flag of Israel. The star symbol is very old and was used as a decoration by many ancient cultures. The oldest known example dates back to the time of Noah, almost 4,400 years ago. However, by no means is this star the oldest so-called Jewish symbol, any more than it should be considered Jewish at all. The oldest known symbol of Israel, is not the falsely so-called Star of David. The Star of Solomon, or Luciferian star, dates back over 4,000 years, and was in many ancient cultures. This is very important because this star has been connected to false pagan worship, and Moses had a very difficult time getting the people of Israel to forsake this false religion. During the Middle Ages the symbol became connected with magic and protection, along with the pentagram or five-pointed star. The connection with magic dates much earlier than the Middle Ages for both stars. This can easily be proven by a quick study on magic and witchcraft. The so-called Star of David, also called the Shield of David, or Magen David, in reality, is the seal of Solomon, when he turned reprobate, Luciferian, and was fully given over to the occult. The Star of David is not mentioned in Scripture. During the last 2 centuries the six-pointed star has become a distinct so-called Jewish symbol. One motive was the desire to have a common so-called Jewish identification similar to the so-called Christian cross and Islamic moon god crescent. It is important that we know that it has only been the past 2 centuries that the star has become a distinct so-called Jewish symbol. It really is sad to see even some of our true Hebrew Israelite people carrying around that a symbol of Satan, witchcraft, magic, and the occult. The Star of Solomon, falsely called the Star of David. We will soon see the Most High remove the veil. Then we will see this falsely so-called Star of David removed from any association with the true Hebrew Israelite people and land of Israel, on the second coming of our Savior the Messiah, who will make us become a nation again. Zechariah 12-9-11. And it shall come to pass in that day, that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem, and I will pour upon the house of David, and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the spirit of grace and of supplications, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him, as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him, as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning of Hadadrimmon in the valley of Megiddo. 2 Corinthians 3:14-16. But their minds were blinded, for until this day remaineth the same veil untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in the Messiah. But even unto this day, when Moses is read, the veil is upon their heart. Nevertheless when it shall turn to the Lord, the veil shall be taken away. While ye have light, believe in the light, that ye may be the children of light. For ye were sometimes darkness, but now are ye light in the Most High. Walk as children of light, ye are all the children of light, and the children of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness. Freemasonry is a Jewish union, with history.
So could the light refer to illumination, total mind control with synthetic telepathy? Possibly by a neural network that helps rather than destroys the people. Certain privileged individuals perhaps with a little aureole, a little halo. A mini Tesla plasma shield that is portable and that protects the brainwave against alteration. That would be sort of the opposite, you could argue, of illumination.
Tasks, ordinary designations from the beginning to the end are Jewish. Dr. Isaac Meyer Wise.
So I think like with a alien invasion, if you have space aliens invading our planet, then we first have to determine whether they are good or bad, basically, to put it bluntly, whether they are friend or foe of the human race, if they just come to plunder our planet and annihilate us all, or to help us share technology and create perfect societies in which we all will live happily, eternally, and to colonize the universe before the Earth burns up in the last rays of the sun, according to NASA. The Earth burns up in the last rays of the sun, and then the sun becomes a black or white dwarf star.
1818 to 1900, Jewish American Reform Rabbi. What were the effects of the subversion of Freemasonry by the
Were you in the same secret society?
There you heard the voice of Andrew Meyer, who was tasered for asking John Kerry if he's a Skull and Bones member. And they may have killed interviewer Tim Russert with a heart attack weapon. And they also call themselves the Brotherhood of Death and are synonymous with the Jesuits, according to sources online. And they have Hebrew motto.
Jews. Within the organization, Masonry is based upon Judaism. Eliminate the teachings of Judaism from the Masonic ritual in what is left. The Jewish Tribune, New York, October 28, 1927. In the present nations, Freemasonry is only of benefit to the Jews. Theodor Herzl, founder and leader of World Zionism. We have founded many secret associations, which all work for our purpose, under our orders and our direction. One of the many triumphs of our Freemasonry is that those Gentiles who become members of our lodges, should never suspect that we are using them to build their own jails, upon whose terraces we shall erect the throne of our universal. Freemasonry is a Jewish union, with history, tasks, ordinary designations from the beginning to the end are Jewish. Dr. Isaac Meyer Wise, 1818 to 1900, Jewish American Reform Rabbi. What were the effects of the subversion of Freemasonry by the Jews? Within the organization, Masonry is based upon Judaism. Eliminate the teachings of Judaism from the Masonic ritual in what is left. The Jewish Tribune, New York, October 28, 1927. In the present nations, Freemasonry is only of benefit to the Jews. Theodor Herzl, founder and leader of World Zionism. We have founded many secret associations, which all work for our purpose, under our orders and our direction. One of the many triumphs of our Freemasonry is that those Gentiles who become members of our lodges, should never suspect that we are using them to build their own jails, upon whose terraces we shall erect the throne of our universal King of the Jews, and should never know that we are commanding them to forge the chains of their own servility to our future King of the world. Opening speech made at the 𝙲𝙰𝙲 Convention in Paris, published in the Catholic Gazette, February 1936. History records that the money changers have used every form of abuse, intrigue, deceit, and violent means possible to maintain their control over governments by controlling money and its issuance. James Madison. Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who writes the laws. Amschel Rothschild, 1744–1812, founder of the House of Rothschild. Money plays the largest part in determining the course of history. Karl Marx. The real truth of the matter is, as you and I know, that a financial element in the large centers has owned the government ever since the days of Andrew Jackson. Franklin D. Roosevelt. It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and money system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. Henry Ford.
During parts of this broadcast I was getting some lemonade that I put in the fridge. Basically I use filtered tap water and bioorganic eco lemonade, and it's a good idea to grow your own food. But because I was away during reading of the text, I don't know if there's anything in violation of the YouTube policy. Please let me know in the comments, or Skype Prologic999. Then I can blur it out, edit it out, or delete this whole video.
The government should create, issue, and circulate all the currency and credits needed to satisfy the spending power of the government and the buying power of consumers. By the adoption of these principles, the taxpayers will be saved immense sums of interest. Money will cease to be master and become the servant of humanity. Abraham Lincoln. If Congress has the right under the Constitution to issue paper money, it was given them to use themselves, not to be delegated to individuals or corporations. Andrew Jackson. When a government is dependent upon bankers for money, they and not the leaders of the government control the situation. Since the hand that gives is above the hand that takes, money has no motherland, financiers are without patriotism and without decency, their sole object is gain. Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of France, 1815. Research who was the financiers. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. Thomas Jefferson. The modern theory of the perpetuation of debt has drenched the earth with blood, and crushed its inhabitants under burdens ever accumulating. Thomas Jefferson. The few who understand the system will either be so interested in its profits or be so dependent upon its favors that there will be no opposition from that class, while on the other hand, the great body of people, mentally incapable of comprehending the tremendous advantage that capital derives from the system, will bear its burdens without complaint, and perhaps without even suspecting that the system is inimical to their interests. The Rothschild brothers of London, writing to associates in New York, 1863, 1812, backed by Rothschild's money, and Nathan Meyer Rothschild's orders.
So this webpage is basically about the Jesuits, universecreator.weebly.com, and I've done videos about Tisha B'Av possibly being a date World War III can start, based on the quote purification papers on Google Books. On page 11 you can read that they think that it will take place on Tisha B'Av based on these Torah codes. They just don't know the year, only that it would be on Tisha B'Av, which in fact is the 9th of the 11th Hebrew month of Av. And so it's 9/11. Dutch people also write 11/9, and the Americans write 9/11 for September 11th. And two dates conveniently omitted were September 11, 1537, the day of infamy when the Jesuits performed the first human sacrifice and cannibalistic Romish Mass, and July 31st, 1556, the day Loyola turned black and died while on his deathbed. VaticanAssassins.org, 2009. And so that's relevant, I think. And Tisha B'Av this year would be the 11th of August, coinciding with my mother's birthday. And I don't know who. I've made a list of 7 suspects. They've also tortured my mother to death, and they've tortured my teeth out of my mouth, dental torture, with a pulsed energy projectile weapon. And the scalar waves were not partially deflected, but the electromagnetic field pulsed energy projectile beam was partially deflected by a grounded Van de Graaff generator, so that the P beam was also felt on other body parts. And they have these mobile pulsed energy projectile weapons and ADS weapons to disperse crowds and to attack peaceful protesters. And they've also used agent provocateurs to give the illusion that the protesters are rioters, they're not peaceful protesters. They've also infiltrated movements, etc. And they've used police provocateurs to attack cancer tetracycle or police cars, basically. And also to break windows, often dressed as ninjas, but in reality they're police officers dressed as civilians, or rather as ninjas. So perhaps these Antifa ninjas are not really Antifa ninjas, but police provocateurs, agent provocateurs. You can also check that wiki article about this. And I have another website that I've shown before. I've shown it before. They're all reachable via universalpeace.jimdo.com, my blogs. And, well, this is more about the cannibalism that these Jesuits are allegedly involved in. Their satanic human sacrifice rituals. But I was looking up a Napoleon quote, basically, because we heard that Napoleon quote about Rothschild, I think. The Jesuits are a military organization, not a religious order. Their chief is a general of an army, not the mere father abbot of a monastery. Currently that would be Arturo Sosa, I think. And the aim of this organization is power, power in its most despotic exercise, absolute power, universal power, power to control the world by the volition of a single man. It is the Black Pope, the superior general of the Jesuits. Jesuitism is the most absolute of despotisms, quote, and at the same time the greatest and most enormous of abuses. Napoleon Bonaparte, 1769 to 1821, Emperor of France, quote. So there was a Dutch NRC article which makes me still wonder, could Boris Johnson create World War III? Is he in a position as Prime Minister of Great Britain? I think he would not do anything without the consent of Trump, and Trump might not be able to do certain things without the consent of Congress, and Netanyahu might be a bigger threat, but it is possible. Perhaps there are several possibilities. Another false flag attack. Iran refuses to comply with one of these 12 points of Pompeo. And Putin already made clear he doesn't agree with the sanctions. basically you could argue they know what the possibilities are, and they could make plans for that. Basically, if there would be a terrorist attack, either false flag or real attack by the IRGC, for example, on American army personnel, have an agreement with Putin about all possible scenarios so that no world war could ever occur. Never again world war, that's the idea also of my Twitter. So agreements, talks, and also using the mainstream media to prevent World War III and create universal peace. And I think it's awesome, great that Iran has already allowed inspections, and it's definitely, we cannot blame Iran. It's definitely not Iran. They have done everything in their power to comply and to prevent World War III. And that's also clear from this fact that they allow these inspections and even to stay in the JCPOA, etc. So that makes clear they're not building a nuclear weapon. So the whole argument for an invasion or possible attack on Iran is swept from the table by the fact that they allow these inspections, you could argue. So I hope they can both make some concessions, that it's debatable not all 12 points Pompeo made are justifiable, you could argue, or what's a better word what Putin used in it. I've looked it up in 10 broadcasts already and I keep on forgetting the word Putin used. Putin, that was the Reuters article, Putin, Tehran in full compliance with its nuclear commitments, sanctions against Iran groundless. The Jesuits are the deadly enemies of civil and religious liberty. R.W. Thompson, ex-Secretary, American Navy. The Roman Inquisition had been administered since 1542 by the Jesuits F. Tupper Saucy, rulers of evil. 18. Between 1555 and 1931, the Society of Jesus, that is the Jesuit order, was expelled from at least 83 countries. J.E.C. Shepherd, Canadian historian. So these countries are also listed, etc. It's in this article, Satanic Jesuit Cannibals. And now we continue reading about the Rothschilds.
The British declare war on the United States. The Rothschilds' plan was to cause the United States to build up such a debt in fighting this war that they would have to surrender to the Rothschilds and allow the charter for the Rothschild-owned First Bank of the United States to be renewed. http://humansufree.com/history of House of Rothschild. See the House of Rothschild. http://www.caucasus-content/2012/10/30/169113.html. Any doubt they started world wars to get the UN ball rolling? What exactly is a world war other than Bernays-style propaganda? http://www.3worldwars.com/AlbertPike2.htm. This link explains the Rockefellers' connection to the World Trade Center. The Twin Towers were nicknamed David and Nelson. http://www.pbs.org/features/biography/New York Rockefeller/. Aaron Russo was a film producer and a politician. He ran for Nevada governor in 1998 and U.S. president on the Libertarian ticket in 2004, losing both. He was approached by Nicholas Rockefeller to join the Council on Foreign Relations. He declined. Rockefeller told him about 9/11 11 months prior to it happening. Here is a clip from his interview discussing it. Aaron Russo talks Rockefeller elite, 12 minutes. But an end run around national sovereignty, eroding it piece by piece, will accomplish much more than the old-fashioned frontal assault. The hopeful aspect of the present situation is that even as nations resist appeals for world government and the surrender of sovereignty, technological, economic and political interests are forcing them. As in the case of the U.S. Constitution, we are more likely to make progress by pressing the existing instrument to the outer limits of its potentialities through creative use, seeking amendments only on carefully selected matters where they seem both necessary and capable of adoption by the constitutionally required majority. Council on Foreign Relations, Foreign Affairs, April 1974. It's still on their website. http://www.foreignaffairs.com/./The Hard Road to World Order. David Rockefeller is their honorary chairman. For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents such as my encounter with Castro to attack the Rockefeller family for the inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interest of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure, one world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. David Rockefeller, Autobiography Memoirs 2002. John F. Kennedy. This speech and Executive Order 11110 on June 4, 1963. Which he enacted to restrict the power of the Federal Reserve and give it back to the United States Treasury Department. This executive order has never been repealed, amended, or superseded by any subsequent executive order. In simple terms, it is still valid. http://n.wikipedia.org/wiki/executive_order_111110 1 week before he was assassinated. There's a plot in this great nation to enslave every man, woman, and child. I plan to expose this evil plot before I leave this high and noble office where no mainstream JFK researcher dares to go. The Rothschild and Israeli Mossad connection to the JFK assassination. Yes, the CIA, FBI, Mafia and Dallas police were all involved in the JFK assassination. But at the apex of it all was the Rothschild central banking family and the Israeli Mossad. JFK vehemently opposed the idea of Israel having aggressive nuclear weapons program, and was poised to stop it from advancing any further. This was one of many major reasons he was assassinated, and guys like Jesse Ventura and Alex Jones will refuse to mention this. Another major reason JFK was murdered is because of his self-passed Executive Order 1110, which gave Congress the power once again to issue interest and debt-free money without going to the Rothschild-controlled Federal Reserve Central Bank. Check out the links below for full detailed information on the Rothschilds and their creation, Zionist Israel's involvement in JFK's death. http://henrymccaw.com/Rothschild ties to JFK assassinatio. http://henrymccaw.com/Zionist media collaborates in JFKC. http://henrymccaw.com/JFK Israel at odds over nukes.html http://rants.com/January89/Israel.html.
So I don't know if Henry Makow is controlled opposition as well. And we cannot trust anything anybody writes. If something is important, then we can verify it. And So I don't know to what extent these claims are true or false. But I make clear what the source is, so you can check it out for yourselves.
http://www.trends.com/general53/fjk.htm related JFK versus the Rothschild Federal Reserve http://whatreallyhappened.com/or articles/JFK_v_Feder.html John F. Kennedy versus the Federal Reserve. On June 4, 1963, a virtually unknown presidential decree, Executive Order 11,110, was signed with the authority to basically strip the bank of its power to loan money to the United States federal government at interest. With the stroke of a pen, President Kennedy declared that the privately owned Federal Reserve Bank would soon be out of business. The Christian Law Fellowship has exhaustively researched this matter through the Federal Register and Library of Congress. We can now safely conclude that this executive order has never been repealed, amended, or superseded by any subsequent executive order. In simple terms, it is still valid. They funded both sides in almost all modern wars since the Napoleonic Wars '.
So, welcome to the thought revolution at Imagine a World with No Corruption. On Facebook also makes clear what these sources are, Wikipedia, quotes, etc. And Control the Position can also misquote people, so they can say something that is true but then attribute the quote to somebody that didn't say it, and mixing lies such as the earth is flat and shape-shifting reptilians and other things, so that they can claim you're a conspiracy theorist and that you're mentally ill and electroshock you, despite the fact that electroshock always increases the victim's suicide risk and always causes brain damage, as shown by the MRI scans on wildestgoals.com. They still continue, quote, treating, unquote, people with electroshock, electroconvulsive therapy, they'd call it. So if they suggest to you electroconvulsive therapy, just say no. And the truth doesn't always set you free. In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is considered a revolutionary act of insurrection or whatever. And some people were killed for telling the truth. So we must remember to always mistrust authority, not just to question authority.
The history of the House of Rothschild. The Rothschilds have been in control of the world for a very long time, and I produce my evidence for this below in a timeline. The Rothschilds have, with their founding of Zionism, betrayed the principles of the Torah, and have caused great suffering around the world. I name individual Rothschilds where I can, but due to the secrecy which they shroud themselves in, naming the exact Rothschild is not always possible. I also wish to point out that this article is not criticizing everyone with the name Rothschilds, simply the criminal element of that group that have carried out the treachery I detail below. Furthermore, a great deal of this criminal element no longer carry the name Rothschild, and there is a great deal of evidence pointing to the fact that those people currently in control of the United States, British and Israeli government are in fact Rothschilds. Rothschild timeline, 1743. Meyer Emskell-Bauer.
They write that Rothschilds have, with their founding of Zionism, betrayed the principle of the Torah. What principle would that be then? The land from Dan to Beersheba? If anyone knows, let me know in the comments, but I doubt it.
Born Frankfurt, Germany, the son of Moses Emskell-Bauer, a moneylender and the proprietor of a counting house. Over the entrance door he places a red sign. This sign is a six-pointed star, which geometrically and numerically translates into the number 666, which under Rothschild instruction will end up on the Israeli flag some 2 centuries later. 1753, Tel Schnaper, future wife of Mayr-Amschel-Bauer, born 1760. During this decade Mayr-Amschel-Bauer works for a bank owned by the Oppenheimers in Hanover, Germany. He is highly successful and becomes a junior partner. Whilst working at the bank he becomes acquainted with General von.
Perhaps it's a form of controlled opposition to themselves or whatever. So they pretend to be resistance and expose the bad guys, but in reality it's to help with the cover-up, mixing it with lies, and to round up any real resistance to the people that want to reduce the global population and rule the world from Jerusalem, the Jesuits and Masons, with that breast shield with these two wolves on it and that witch's cauldron, witch's pot that I've shown earlier, Loyola, Ignatius and Ignatius of Loyola, they say. So yeah, you can Google everything. It's massive amount of information that is available, and most of it may be mis or disinformation. So this has taken like 10 years for me to figure all of this out, and I try to give you all the information that is vital to prevent World War III. So the idea is to prevent, stall, obstruct, sabotage, contain and end World War III ASAP. And also any plans in that direction, we should go in the opposite direction, not towards total self-annihilation, but towards controlling all factors that control aging.
Torf, following his father's death, Bauer returns to Frankfurt to take over his father's business. Bauer recognizes the significance of the red sign and changes his name from Bauer to Rothschild, after the red sign signifying 666 hanging over the entrance door. Roth is German for red, Schild is German for sign. Now Mayr-Amschel Rothschild, he discovers that General von Estorff is now attached to the court of Prince William of Hanover. He therefore makes the general's reacquaintance on the pretext of selling him valuable coins and trinkets at discounted prices. As he plans, Rothschild is subsequently introduced to Prince William himself, who is more than pleased with discounted prices he charges for his rare coins and trinkets, and Rothschild offers him a bonus for any other business the prince can direct his way. Rothschild subsequently becomes close associates with Prince William, and ends up doing business with him and members of the court. 1769, Mayr-Amschel Rothschild is given permission by Prince William to hang a sign on the front of his business premises declaring that he is M.A. Rothschild, by appointment court factor to His Serene Highness, Prince William of Hanover. 1770, Mayr-Amschel Rothschild marries 𝚃𝙁. Mayr-Amschel Rothschild draws up plans for the creation of the Illuminati and entrusts Adam Weishaupt with its organization and development. 1773, Amschel Mayr Rothschild born. 1774, Salomon Mayr Rothschild born. 1777, Nathan Mayr Rothschild born. 1788, Kalman, Karl, Mayr Rothschild born. 1791, the Rothschilds through Alexander Hamilton, their agent in George Washington's cabinet, set up a central bank in the USA called the Bank of the United States. This is established with a 20-year charter. 1792, Jacob, James, Mayr Rothschild born. 1796, Amschel Mayr Rothschild marries Eva Hanover. 1798, Nathan Mayr Rothschild leaves Frankfurt for Manchester, England, where with the help of his father and brothers he exports English textiles to Europe. 1800, Salomon Mayr Rothschild marries Caroline Stern. 1806, Napoleon states that it is his object to remove the House of Hesse-Kassel from rulership and to strike it out of the list of powers. On hearing this, Prince William of Hanover flees Germany, goes to Denmark and entrusts his fortune valued at $3 million at that time to Mayr-Amschel Rothschild for safekeeping. Nathan Mayr Rothschild marries Hannah Barrett Cohen, the daughter of a wealthy London merchant, and begins to move his business to London. 1808, Nathan Mayr Rothschild has his first son born, Lionel Nathan the Rothschild. 1809, as the Channel blockade was making the export business difficult, Nathan Meyer Rothschild, went to New Street, London and set himself up as a banker. 1810, Sir Francis Baring and Abraham Goldsmith die. This leaves Nathan Meyer Rothschild as the remaining major banker in England. Salomon Meyer Rothschild goes to Vienna, Austria and sets up the bank, M. von Rothschild und Sohn, 1811. The charter for the Rothschilds Bank of the United States runs out and Congress votes against its renewal. At the time Andrew Jackson, who would become the 7th President of the United States from 1829 to 1837, says, if Congress has a right under the Constitution to issue paper money, it was given them to use by themselves, not to be delegated to individuals or corporations. Nathan Meyer Rothschild is not amused and he stated, either the application for renewal of the charter is granted, or the United States will find itself involved in a most disastrous war. Andrew Jackson's response to this is to say, you are a den of thieves' vipers, and I intend to rout you out, and by the eternal God, I will rout you out. Nathan Meyer Rothschild's reply to that being, teach those impudent Americans a lesson, bring them back to colonial status. 1812, backed by Rothschild money, the British declare war on the United States. The Rothschilds' plan was to cause the United States to build up such a debt in fighting this war that they would have to surrender to the Rothschilds and allow the charter for the Rothschild-owned Bank of the United States to be renewed. Meyer Emskell Rothschild dies. In his will he lays out specific laws that the House of Rothschild were to follow. All key positions in the family business were only to be held by family members. Only male members of the family were allowed to participate in the family business. It is important to note that Meyer Emskell Rothschild also has 5 daughters, so today the spread of the Rothschild Zionist dynasty without the Rothschild name is far and wide. The family was to intermarry with its first and second cousins to preserve the family fortune. No public inventory of his estate was to be published. No legal action was to be taken with regard to the value of the inheritance. The eldest son of the eldest son was to become the head of the family. This condition could only be overturned when the majority of the family agreed otherwise. This was straightway the case and Nathan Meyer Rothschild was elected head of the family following his father, Meyer Emskell Rothschild's death. Jacob, James, Meyer Rothschild goes to Paris, France to set up the bank. De Rothschild Frères, Nathaniel de Rothschild, the son-in-law of Jacob, James, Meyer Rothschild, born 1814, with regard to the $3 million Prince William of Hanover had entrusted to Meyer Emskell Rothschild for safekeeping. For an account of what happened next we turn to the Jewish Encyclopedia, 1905 edition, volume 10, page 494, which states, according to legend this money was hidden away in wine casks, and, escaping the search of Napoleon's soldiers when they entered Frankfurt, was restored intact in the same casks in 1814, when the Elector, Prince William of Hanover, returned to the Electorate, Germany. The facts are somewhat less romantic, and more businesslike. This last line indicates the money was never returned by Rothschild to Prince William of Hanover. The encyclopedia goes on to state, Nathan Meyer Rothschild invested this $3 million in gold from the East India Company knowing that it would be needed for Wellington's Peninsula campaign. On the stolen money Nathan made, no less than 4 profits, I, on the sale of Wellington's paper which he bought at 50 cents on the dollar and collected at par, 2, on the sale of gold to Wellington, 3, on its repurchase, and 4, on forwarding it to Portugal. 1815. The 5 Rothschild brothers worked to supply gold to both Wellington's army, through Nathan in England, and Napoleon's army, through Jacob in France, and begin their policy of funding both sides in wars. Due to the fact that these brothers had banks spread out across Europe, this gave them the facility to set up an unrivaled network of secret routes and fast couriers. These Rothschild couriers were the only merchants allowed to pass through the English and French blockades. It was these couriers who also kept Nathan Meyer Rothschild up to date with how the war was going so he could use that intelligence to buy and sell from his position on the stock exchange in accordance with that intelligence. At that time British bonds were called consols and they were traded on the floor of the stock exchange. Nathan Meyer Rothschild instructed all his workers on the floor to start selling consols. They made all the other traders believe that the British had lost the war, so they started selling frantically. Therefore the consols plummeted in value, which was when Nathan Meyer Rothschild discreetly instructed his workers to purchase all the consols they could lay their hands on. When news came through that the British had actually won the war, the consols went up to a level even higher than before the war ended, leaving Nathan Meyer Rothschild with a return of approximately 20 to 1 on his investment. This gave the Rothschild family complete control of the British economy, now the financial center of the world following Napoleon's defeat, and forced England to set up a new Bank of England, which Nathan Meyer Rothschild controlled. Nathan Meyer Rothschild would later state, "I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply." The Rothschilds also used their control of the Bank of England to replace the method of shipping gold from country to country, and instead used their 5 banks spread across Europe to set up a system of paper debits and credits, the banking system of today. 1816. The charter for the Bank of the United States is renewed for another 20 years with the Rothschilds in control of the American money supply again. The British war against the America therefore ends with the deaths of thousands of British and American. Image may contain 1 person, text 44 3 shares, Ulrich Hoffman. Like, show more reactions, comment, share comments. Ulrich Hoffman. Write a comment, write a post, photo, video, tag friends, check in. Welcome to the Thought Revolution, September 13, 2015. Middle. If you're like most people, your personal values include the golden rule or something very close to it. In other words, you have enough empathy to realize that others want that same freedom to pursue their happiness. But when you enter politics, whether you're conservative, progressive, or independent, it's extremely likely your political actions contradict the golden rule. This may be news to you. After all, you're a decent and smart person. But if you want to harmonize your political actions with your moral values, this page is for you.
And Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. quote, "A mind that is stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions." Okay. So the truth is knowledge is power. Knowledge equals power. And the truth is not a tablet. The truth defines reality. It's not a chemical cancer-causing prescription drug. And of course, to cure a disease, we have to treat the cause. Treat the cause rather than fight the symptoms with chemicals cancer-causing prescription drugs. Natural cures are online as well. I am for using cleaner energy, geothermal energy for example, and some other things that I've covered in my previous broadcast may also be important. So red tide, these fish jumping above the oceans, coral dying, etc. We have to find out what the cause is and then treat the cause rather than fight the symptoms. And there are natural warm and cold periods, that's true. We're due for another ice age. Can the geoengineers control it somehow? Or is that going to happen? Is a pole shift also going to happen? How long will it take? And a solar storm is another thing we have to be prepared for. Cool picture. the thought revolution, free thinking, getting to the truth of matters. Alright, so everybody can also check my Never Again World War page. For example, let's see. I think that there's a part of my post missing that I wanted to post more info about Ingersoll Lockwood. Writer writes about a populist president with a cabinet member. That was in 1893, a book called Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey, and some other books. One of them is 1900 or The Last President. And what's interesting is that the name Pence is also found in that book, and also the Fifth Avenue Hotel, meaning that it shares a street with Trump Tower. So what are the odds of that in a book of 1893, you know? And there are videos about it online as well. Give peace a chance. Well, we shouldn't just give it a chance, but actively work and pursue universal peace. Make a system that makes World War III impossible. It can be applied on the universe. A world peace agreement is one idea, an agreement between all countries that any country that would be imperialistic, try to invade another country, would be met with resistance by all other countries together to end that war, or even a coup perhaps, coup d'etat, which can also be a bloodless coup d'etat. But we're dealing with these Jesuits and Masons, and even they could be overthrown theoretically. If their own people also disagree with what they're doing, then they could take over the leader, and that can also be done in a bloodless coup. Or perhaps there are other techniques within that, within these societies and groups that are used to do that legally, or in the way the previous ones also did it. So create universal peace, end all wars, take steps and make strategies to prevent World War III, invest in controlling all factors that control aging instead of more illegal wars. That's the idea. End all wars, vegetarian, Nikola Tesla quote, universal peace now. Never again World War, never again W War, July 16th. It's illegal to block a working cure from the public. Angry emoji. Cocaine, heroin, cannabis to push their chemical, thus cancer-causing prescription drugs, to reduce the global population, Rockefeller drug laws, legalize it. Ban space weapons, prevent militarization of space. One-state solution now, passports and equal rights in return for the Temple Mount. Trump may be the last president. If a long-planned Third Temple World War cannot be prevented, it can. There is no fate but what we make for ourselves. Terminator 2 quote is true. At least to a certain extent. Of course, if we're hit by a gigantic meteor, or the universe disintegrates, or a black hole swallows us, or the Earth burns up in the last rays of the sun, then it would not be true, I guess. Then our fate is not made by ourselves. reality is bigger than us, or something like that. Skype 𝙲𝙰𝙃𝚃999 to chat or do a broadcast. Check. So we have to colonize the universe before that happens. And if NASA is faking manned space travel, and manned space travel is impossible because of 4 reasons. The vacuum in space that they cannot accurately simulate on Earth. They can simulate it a bit, but not 100%. The extreme temperatures in space, minus 200 to plus 200, and small space debris flying in space. And of course these 2 deadly belts of radiation, the 2 Van Allen belts that astronauts would have to travel through to get to the moon, may be the real reasons manned space travel may still be impossible. We know for sure, we are certain about the fact that NASA Masons have faked these Apollo moon landings, proven by their own videos, where we can see an astronaut throw a cable and we hear that come down, and on the moon that's impossible because of the vacuum. There is no air on the moon, therefore it is impossible that the microphone in the astronaut's helmet picks up the sound of the cable that was thrown. And also one with a plate, so Apollo moon landings are definitely faked, and they're pretending that it was for a good reason to prevent Cold War and that type of thing. But if you think about it, that's nonsense. Of course, whether they land on the moon or not is no reason for them to go ahead with or prevent mutually assured destruction. I think that they are smart enough to understand they both have a similar amount of nuclear weapons, that it would be nuclear assured destruction unless they would have some way to ward off all the missiles of the enemy. They both have scalar weapons, so then eventually it could end up into being a scalar world war, and none without a Tesla plasma shield would survive. I've shown that earlier. The Chinese Tesla plasma shield of about 3 kilometers in diameter. And it's, I think, the only picture of a Tesla plasma shield online. And then the question is also, can they generate this anywhere? According to the Dr. Bernard Easton's HARP patent, yeah, they can. But they might deny everything to mislead what they consider the enemies. The 7 billion people of planet Earth they want to annihilate, according to the book quotes and illegal Georgia Guidestones. That cost over $1 million basically, so they pretend to want to bring peace, or that it's the only way to bring peace to the Middle East, but in reality it's the only way to create the third Jesuit World War, the 2-state solution World War. I have to talk to my father now, so this is the end of my broadcast, the Tesla Plasma Shield. Thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share this video on your timeline for a better future for the people of planet Earth. And also because I would love that. I think it does work, and I have already changed the timeline. But now I really need to talk with my father, so do stuff for universal peace. Keep your head cool and have a good time. Swimming is a good idea with this hot weather. Thank you all for watching, and thank you all for your likes and subscribes. And see you next time on Try Something.Vegetarian.